Let me paint you a picture. It's 1978 in southeastern Massachusetts. A man named Joseph DeAndre is taking a walk near a swamp. Just a regular walk. Fresh air and nature. The kind of wholesome activity your doctor recommends. Everything is fine. The birds are chirping. Leaves are rustling. Life is good. And then he smells something. Something awful. Like a dumpster. That somehow got worse. He slows down. He looks around. And there, between the trees, something is standing upright. It's tall and covered in dark, matted hair, looking directly at him. Now at this point, most people have two options. Option A, scream and run. Option B, staying completely silent and hope it doesn't notice you. Joseph chose the third option. He left quickly, without looking back, which is honestly the correct answer. And when he got home, shaking, confused, smelling faintly of whatever that thing was, he sat down and thought about it. What just happened? And he came to one conclusion. He had just seen Bigfoot in Massachusetts, which is not where Bigfoot is supposed to be. Bigfoot is supposed to be in Oregon or Washington or somewhere with enough wilderness to hide a large, smelly cryptid. Not southeastern New England. Not 20 minutes from a Dunkin' Donuts. Joseph DeAndre wasn't the first person to see something like that near the swamp. And he wasn't the last. Because this swamp, this particular stretch of dark water and twisted trees in southeastern Massachusetts, has been producing stories like this for centuries. And not just Bigfoot stories. Ghost stories, UFO stories, stories about creatures, and even about curses. And some stories that aren't stories at all. Some that are documented, criminal, real. Welcome to the Bridgewater Triangle, where the paranormal doesn't just visit. It apparently bought property and refused to leave. Before we get into the weird stuff, and there is a lot of weird stuff, let's establish what the Bridgewater Triangle is. Because it's a real place, not a movie set, not a theme park, an actual region in southeastern Massachusetts, covering roughly 200 square miles. It's 3 points connecting the towns of Abington to the north, Rehoboth to the west, and Freetown to the southeast. Inside that triangle are quiet suburbs, old colonial roads, ponds, forests, and at the very center, Hockomock Swamp. Now, Hockomock Swamp is not your average swamp. It covers about 17,000 acres, which is enormous. It's dense, dark, waterlogged, and disorienting in a way that's hard to describe until you've actually been inside of it. The name Hockomock comes from the Algonquin language. It translates to the place where spirits dwell. Whoever named this place was not trying to hide the vibe. They were very upfront about it. Like, hey, what's in there? Spirits. Cool, cool. And the swamp next to it? Also spirits. It's hard to argue with that. The English colonists who first encountered it had their own name. They called it the Devil's Swamp, which tells you everything you need to know about first impressions. And the term Bridgewater Triangle itself, That was coined in the 1970s by a researcher named Lauren Coleman, who looked at the concentration of paranormal reports in this area and said, yeah, this needs a name. And honestly, fair. Because the list of things reported here reads like something just checked every box on a paranormal bingo card. Ghosts, check. Bigfoot, check. UFOs, giant birds, tiny goblin creatures, check. Actual cult activity, unfortunately, also check. It's like the universe looked at this one corner of Massachusetts and said, you know what? Let's just put everything here. Now let's dive into the history. Now here's where we need to slow down, because the Bridgewater Triangle isn't just a collection of weird stories. It has roots, deep ones. And to understand why so many people think this land is different, you have to go back to 1675 and King Philip's War, one of the most devastating conflicts in early American history. The Wampanoag people, who had lived in this region for generations, were fighting back against the English colonists, who had been steadily taking their land for decades. And their leader, a man named the English called King Philip, his real name was Metacomet, was brilliant, strategic, and he knew this land better than anyone. His stronghold? Hockomock Swamp, because of course it was. The swamp was perfect, dense enough to hide in, wet enough to slow down anyone chasing you, dark enough to make even experienced soldiers second-guess themselves. Colonial forces who entered the swamp came back with stories. Shadows moving between trees, sounds with no source, the overwhelming feeling of being watched from every direction. Some soldiers didn't even come back at all. The swamp just kept them, and the Wampanoag used it masterfully. Strike from the dark, vanish into the water, leaving nothing behind but confusion and fear. Now, to be clear, some of those supernatural experiences were probably just skilled warriors doing their job. If you're a colonial soldier stumbling through a dark swamp at night, and someone who knows every inch of it is watching you, that's just called being outmatched. But by 1676, the war turned. Metacomet was hunted down and killed. His warriors were defeated. His people were scattered, enslaved, or just destroyed. And at a place called ANAWAN Rock, a massive boulder in what is now Rehoboth, the last of his men surrendered. And according to legend, something else happened that night. Something that would echo for centuries. A curse that fell on the land. So the story goes like this. When the Wampanoag surrendered at ANAWAN Rock, sacred objects were taken, including a wampum belt of deep spiritual significance. Now, wampum belts weren't just decorative. They were records, agreements, sacred documents woven from shell beads. They held history. They held meaning. And when that belt was taken according to legend, a curse fell on the land. Not a dramatic, theatrical curse. No lightning, no booming voices from the sky. Something quieter, something patient. The idea that this land soaked in blood stripped of its people, robbed of its sacred objects, would never fully settle. That the spirits disturbed by what happened here would remain disturbed. Now I know what some of you are thinking. That's just a story. And maybe it is. But here's what's interesting. The reporters from this area don't start in the 1970s, when Lauren Coleman coined the term. They go back centuries. Strange lights over the swamp. Figures in the woods. Sounds with no source. Generation after generation of people saying something is different about this place. Whether you believe in curses or not, the history of this land is real. The violence was real. The loss was real. And sometimes, real things leave marks. Let's talk about the ANAWAN rock specifically, because it deserves its own moment. It's still there. You can visit it. It's a large boulder in the woods of Rehoboth. There's even a historical marker. It's very official and very normal looking during the day. At night, people report things. Phantom campfires that burn blue, with ghostly figures dancing around them. Drumming, chanting, the sound of voices speaking in language no one present understands. Campers having reported waking up to the smell of smoke, only to find no fire anywhere nearby. Others have described seeing figures at the edge of the tree line, watching, not approaching, just watching. One account describes a group of friends camping near the rock who woke up at 3 a.m. to the sound of rhythmic drumming. They searched the entire area. No one was there. The drumming continued for 20 minutes, then stopped, and they packed up and left, which honestly is the correct response. You don't investigate the mysterious drumming at 3 a.m. You leave. You go home. You make tea. You never speak of it again. Next stop in our journey, Hockomock Swamp. Now let's talk about Hockomock Swamp itself, because the swamp is the heart of everything. During the day, it's actually beautiful, in a bleak, primordial, slightly unsettling way. Twisted trees rising from the dark water, mist sitting low over the surface, birds calling from somewhere you can't see. It looks like a painting that makes you vaguely uncomfortable, but you can't explain why. At night, it's different. People who've spent the time in the swamp after dark describe a specific kind of experience. Not necessarily seeing something. Not necessarily hearing something. Just a feeling. Like the swamp is occupied. Like every shadow has a reason for being exactly where it is. Like the darkness is arranged. One investigator who spent a full night in Hockomock described it like this. I've been in a lot of dark places. Remote forests, abandoned buildings, places with actual documented histories of violence. And none of them felt like this. This felt intentional. Like whatever was in there knew I was there and was deciding what to do about it. Now that could be imagination. Isolation does strange things to the human brain. Darkness amplifies anxiety. The swamp's natural acoustics make sounds behave oddly. All of that is true, but it doesn't fully explain the lights. The lights of Hockomock Swamp are one of the most consistently reported phenomena in the entire triangle, described as orbs that are floating, drifting, and sometimes stationary, glowing from within the tree line, hovering just above the water's surface. Witnesses describe them as too deliberate to be swamp gas, too consistent to be reflections, too present to be imagined. Some people have tried to approach them. The lights move away, always just out of reach, always maintaining distance, as if they're aware. Swamp gas is a real thing. Methane and other gases produced by decomposing organic matter can ignite and produce floating lights. It's called will-o'-the-wisp. It's been documented, and it's a real natural phenomenon. But here's the thing. Will-o'-the-wisp doesn't move away from you. It doesn't maintain distance. It doesn't behave like it's aware of your presence. The lights reported in Hockomock do. There have been multiple witnesses across multiple decades, all describing the same behavior. Something that glows, something that drifts, something that seems to know you're watching, and something that never lets you get close enough to figure out what it is. Okay, now we jump to the famous Bigfoot. Alright, back to Bigfoot, because we need to spend more time here. The Bridgewater Bigfoot, or as locals sometimes call it, the swamp ape, has been reported in this area for decades, and the reports have a consistency that's hard to ignore. Always near the swamp, always described as tall, upright, and covered in dark hair, always accompanied by that smell. That horrible, overwhelming, why does this exist smell? In 1978, Joseph DeAndrade was so shaken by this encounter that he organized search parties. He went back into those woods with other people, looking for evidence, footprints, hair samples, anything. They found nothing definitive, but they came back with more stories, because apparently the swamp has a way of generating those. In 1980, two men canoeing on Lake Nipponicket, which is located on the edge of the swamp, reported seeing a small orange-furred creature sitting on a tiny island. They described it as looking like a juvenile orangutan. When they paddled towards it, it vanished into the brush. An orangutan in Massachusetts in a swamp? Unusual to say the least. The most charitable explanation of this, someone's exotic pet escaped, which is its own problem. But the witnesses insisted it wasn't moving like an escaped pet. It was moving like something that belonged there, like something that knew exactly where it was going. Alright, so let's recap. We have been to the Hockomock Swamp, the place where spirits dwell, looked into King Philip's War, and ANAWAN Rock. We took a look at the lights in the swamp, and now we saw Bigfoot and an orangutan on an island, reported by two fishermen. And now we head to the next cryptid, a giant bird with teeth. A police officer named Thomas Downey was driving a back road near the swamp in 1971, and something flew over his car. He described it as a bird, but not any bird he had ever seen. The wingspan, he said, was enormous, at least 10 feet, possibly 12. It flew low, slow, and deliberately, like it wasn't afraid of anything. Which, if you have a 12-foot wingspan, you probably aren't. Other witnesses over the years described similar creatures. Some said they looked prehistoric, One person claimed the thing had teeth. Yeah, it was a big bird with teeth. It flew over my car. No big deal. Except, it is a big deal. Because birds don't have teeth. Birds haven't had teeth for about 80 million years. So either this person saw something genuinely unknown, or they had a very bad night and their brain filled in some details. Both are possible. But the sightings kept coming, and the descriptions kept matching. It was giant, dark, slow, and just wrong. Alright, so that's where we are at the end of part 1. We've got a swamp with a name that literally means place where spirits dwell. A history soaked in real violence and loss. A curse that may or may not be responsible for everything that followed. A Bigfoot, a giant bird with possible teeth, mysterious lights that seem to know you're watching, and a rock where people hear drumming at 3 a.m. And we haven't even gotten to the ghosts yet, or the UFOs, or the parts where things get genuinely dark. Like actually dark. Not spooky campfire dark. Real dark. That's part 2. And I'll warn you now, part 2 gets heavy. Because the Bridgewater Triangle isn't just a collection of fun, paranormal stories. Some of what happened here is documented, criminal, and deeply unsettling in a way that has nothing to do with ghosts. So if you want to know the full story, part 2 drops next. And trust me, you're gonna want to watch it. Until then, stay off Route 44 after midnight. And if you see a red-haired man on the side of the road, keep driving. I cannot stress this enough. Keep driving. If you like today's story, hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe, and remember, whether it's by plane, train, or UFO, there's always a story to tell.